Hey there, Steve Quick here from sunny South Florida. Well, the sun's going down now. I was just sitting out here for the sunset and just thinking of all the things that I have to be grateful for, all the events that have happened in my life, all the good, the bad. There's been some horrible stuff that's happened to me. Uh, as you might be able to see, I'm actually in a wheelchair. You can see the controls here, but. Um, I was actually paralyzed 5 years ago from the chest down, and uh, yeah, I thank God for it because I was on a fast road to death, and if He hadn't knocked me down this huge peg, there's no telling. I may not be here right now to share this story with you that I'm hoping will reach out and touch one life. That's all I want is to reach one life. I've been through so much. My childhood was great. Father and mother stayed together, never divorced. Um, Felt a little restricted as a kid, but not being able to do what the other kids were doing, and I guess that led to me being a little rebellious in my high school days, um, sneaking out at night, hanging out at parties, saying I'm going to the movies and go to a party. Uh, and in the year I graduated, I was actually in a rollover just a couple months after September of oh gosh, 94. Um, just had a brain spasm. Not literally. 94 had a rollover where two really great people passed away, uh, and my best friend was severely injured. Both lungs collapsed and punctured. There were four of us in the vehicle. Everyone else was ejected from the car except me. I had a two-piece seatbelt on. I had the shoulder strap on, but I didn't have the lap belt on. So as the car rolled, I was sliding out, and when the car came to a stop, I was looking out of the back hatchback window up at the sky, and my legs were sticking out a hole in the front window with my butt on top of the seat I was sitting in up front. And I jumped out to find the other three people laying in the middle of the highway, I-95, major highway. Um, that was a big turning point in my life. I started getting deeper and deeper into drugs, partying, just trying to clear what had happened out of my mind, I guess. I never really dealt with it at the time. And, that continued on for a while. Did some, some bad stuff. In around 1999, I was playing paintball with some friends. I was just a step back. I was actually building doing construction, building screen enclosures and such, big screen rooms that cover swimming pools to keep the bugs out. And in '99, I started having back problems. My friends and I were playing paintball, tournament paintball, and I guess I just ended up irritating a disc, and minor herniation is what they called it on the films. So, a couple months later, I'm going into surgery. At this point, I'm addicted on pain medication because I, trying to do therapy and get the pain under control. They start giving me pain pills. That was a bad choice. Ended up having back surgery. I became addicted to pain pills, pain medicine, period. Anything I could get that was for pain. And I fought addiction for several years. My father was an alcoholic. He drank a lot of beer. He wasn't really an alcoholic. He wasn't a violent person. Sorry for the plane flying overhead. Hope you guys can still hear me. So he had found sobriety. He was sober for a couple of years at the time. He took me to my first meeting, and that's where I found some real sobriety for the first time. I met some great people that taught me told me what I needed to hear. It wasn't fluff. It wasn't a bunch of, you'll be okay, you'll get over it. It was straight up, stop the BS. Stop messing with your life. Um, they didn't sugarcoat anything. They told me how it was and what I needed to do straight up. And I thank God for that. But I did fight with it for several years on. In 2003, my father died from Lou Gehrig's disease. He actually took his own life on my birthday in 2003. Um, I lost it. I went absolute bonkers. I ended up uh, on a crack addiction. I had a truck that my boss at the time had purchased for me so I could get to and from work and transport materials. Well, I took off with that, and I was on a run. I couldn't be stopped. I was doing everything I could to swindle money and support my habit. And God, I would never wish that life on anybody. Um, so I had been gone for a couple months, and my insurance expired, and the cops pulled me over one day and impounded my truck. So at that point, I was on foot. So for about another 5 months, I was on foot, living on the street, sleeping behind dumpsters, buildings, sleeping in abandoned homes. It was just an absolute nightmare every day. I just wanted everything to end. I wanted to be with my father. But I couldn't do it to myself. Something just wouldn't let me do it. And uh, one night I was saved from my nightmare. Two cops stopped me. They had actually arrested me several times for loitering and such. Finally, one night when they stopped me, they said, "Listen, dude, what's your deal? Why are you on these streets? Why are you walking around here panhandling, drugged up?" I was high as a kite. And I told him what had happened to me. I told him about my father, and just I was beating myself up. I couldn't understand why my birthday, why not just come to us and let us know that it was that bad. So they saved me. After telling them my story, they got me to give them my mother's phone number and set up a place to meet up, and they handed me over to her, and it was amazing. I am so happy that I was taken out of that, because I could not bring myself to call my own family. I was so ashamed. I was so guilt stricken. I was a mess. And sorry about that. I'm drying out a little bit. So end up back home and still fighting with addiction. Still had problems. I sobered up for a little while. Had no vehicle, so I had nowhere to go. But I had family taking me to my meetings, and back and forth with the addictions, back and forth, back and forth. And at one point, I was kind of like, I was pretty clean. I had just smoked a little pot here and there. And in 2007, the most amazing thing in my life happened to me. And that was the day that this girl, this beautiful girl, this beautiful woman, young woman, contacted me on MySpace, saying she wanted to chat and just, get to know each other. And so I'd message her. We ended up exchanging numbers, talking on the phone for 2 hours one night. And ultimately, she lived 3 hours away. I'm on the east coast of Florida. She was on the west coast. And she drove 3.5 hours to come meet me. Not knowing who I am, I could have been a crazy lunatic. But she had confidence and drove 3.5 hours over here to see me. And about a month later, well, we hit it off right off the bat. I mean, she ended up staying the weekend. It was beautiful. It was just the best time. About a month later, I asked her to move over, and was like, just, she wasn't really all that happy with her job. So I said, well, then why don't you just come over here, stay with us, and just look for a job. I trusted her that she would do so. And she did. She moved in, looked for a job. 2 months after moving in, around, this is rough. Um, we're engaged. Then less than a year later, we end up married. July 4th, 2008. Uh, it's my parents' anniversary, my mother and father's anniversary, and I just thought it would be the perfect day. And when I asked my mother if it would be okay, she about fell on the floor. She was so ecstatic. Um, 2 months after getting married, I was clean at the time. I was working with a great guy. I was running the show. I was the only person there, and I was building screen enclosures by myself. And it was just, I was doing amazing things that I never thought I'd be able to do. 2 months after getting married, well, I end up paralyzed. September 2nd of 2008, and the reason being is that the day, as soon as I got home from our honeymoon, my boss had found a guy that he wanted to hire as a helper for me, and seemed like a straight shooter and clean guy, and well, turns out he wasn't. Got me back on the crap. So 2 months later, I end up getting, I'm back to injecting pain medicine, um, and just end up with an infection in my bloodstream, and formed an abscess on my spinal cord from C1 to C7, and paralyzed me. Uh, it happened while I was in the ER, still moving. They made me sit there for, I think it was close to about 8 hours. Um, so, at that point, my life was completely changed. I spent 8 months in the hospital, just from infections. Just I ended up with a huge bed sore. It was just a nightmare situation from the start. I was on breathing machines for 2 months. They said I wouldn't get off them, but I beat that. Um, I ended up coming home. Everything ended up working out, and everything was fine. Um, and to this day, I've been clean and sober, and everything's been great, but not without a lot of heartache and just frustration from dealing with infections, various infections and problems from the paralysis. Uh, I'm very fortunate that I got my arms back and I have full control of my upper body, but I am still paralyzed from the chest down. There have been some improvements with sensation and slight movements, which I will share more with on the progress that's been going on. That's absolutely amazing, and I'm excited to share that with you guys. But for now, I'll leave that to the imagination. Uh, for a couple years, we went on struggling financially. We were living on unemployment. My wife ended up getting fired over the situation. So we fought with unemployment to keep extending and extending for a couple of years, and finally it came to an end. All we had was my disability. There was no way that was covering the expenses. My wife ended up finding uh, a little program online, a way to make some money. It was more of kind of like an investment, but it was a high yield, a very high risk program. Um, we gave it a shot, and it worked out tremendously for us. It paid back. It was exactly what we needed, and from that point on, I've taken off like a rocket ship. Um, I'm now working full time in the network marketing niche, and I couldn't be happier. I'm no longer with that program. I actually ended up employed. Both me and my wife were employed as trainers, and I ended up moving up to an assistant manager position, but the company fell apart. So needless to say, we left before it became a disaster. But we did recently find something, a vehicle that is astounding by anybody's terms. There's some amazing things coming too. At the end of September, a big change is happening that's going to change the industry actually, and not only internet marketing, but traditional business, your local pizza shop to your donut shop to the local cafe will be able to benefit. It's a marketing system, but it's been amazing. I've learned a lot about personal development and becoming a better person, and that's what it's all about. So if you want to hear more about my story, just continue to follow my posts, and I hope to see you on the next video. Bye for now.